We are looking at, as I've just said, a series about being transformed by Jesus. And here's the centre of this, is that we've just sung about the power of the blood, and the power of the blood applied of Jesus Christ in our lives. And there is power that Jesus has to transform us. And this is my message this morning, is Jesus takes away my fear. Yeah? Jesus takes away my fear. That's something to take hold of, okay? We need to claim it for ourselves. What is fear? I wonder what your greatest fear is as you sit here this morning. I wonder what you're most anxious about, what you're most worried about. What is fear? Well, I looked it up in the dictionary. It's an emotional reaction to a perceived threat or danger. An emotional reaction, it's an emotional reaction to a perceived threat or danger. And that might be a rational fear, where there's a real danger, and you make rational reactions to it of making suitable steps to not fall into that danger. So, for example, if you're on the edge of a cliff, you might not go too close. You might not peer over the edge too much, if you're like me. Or if you're like my wife, you'll stand well away from the edge. Okay? So we have different, maybe, reactions to dangers. But we'll look to proceed through life mitigating those dangers throughout there. It's like when we cross the road, you know it's potentially dangerous, so you look each way, don't you? And you listen, okay? You know the green cross code, okay? That's the way that we mitigate the dangers in life. There's also irrational fear, which can be based on something that's not actually really dangerous to us. And I'm sure you're aware of things where you're fearful of it, even though actually they're not dangerous to you, you know? It's never nice picking those daddy long legs and those spiders, is there, and things. There's a kind of, I don't know, a bit of a fear about them. Actually, in this country, they're never going to cause you any real trouble. But the danger is actually we take a disproportionate action and completely shut ourselves off. So a disproportionate action to the danger of crossing a road is to never go out of the house. Yeah? And we're all in a risk of, with our fears, with our anxieties, of taking a disproportionate action and so completely avoiding. And what that does is it actually disables us from living life in the way which God intended. But the good news is Jesus takes away my fear. He overcomes my fear. Yeah, and we'll look a little bit at what that means. There's another question I want to ask, that is, what is death? As we look at the passage today in John 11, you'll see it's entitled on page 1077, by the way, in the Bibles. You might have to pick one up, we'll read it shortly. Page 1077, the death of Lazarus. What is death? Well, death is normally used in our language as the end of something. Yeah, we can use it in a number of ways, a number of metaphorical ways, to refer to the end of something. But actually, when it comes to human life, that's a materialistic perspective, a purely human perspective. We use the words even in a funeral service. I led, as many of you know, Janice's funeral service, and one of the words in there as we commit the body is from dust to dust and ashes to ashes. And we use popular euphemisms, don't we, to talk about death. We try to avoid the directness of the subject with words like passed away, or more jovial ones like kick to the bucket, or we talk about one more angel in heaven, or one more star in the sky, or we talk about a person being forever in our memories, living on in our memories. But I believe, as believers in Jesus Christ, we have a very different perspective on death. So fear and death is what we're looking at this morning. And what I want to do is we're going to read through in the Bible, chapter 11, and we're just going to pick out a few things as we go. First of all is looking at Lazarus' health, or even his sickness. Verse 1 to 6. This is what it says. Now a man named Lazarus was ill. He was from Bethany, the village of Mary and her sister Martha. This Mary, whose brother Lazarus now lay ill, was the same one who poured perfume on the Lord and wiped his feet with her hair. So the sisters sent word to Jesus, "Lord, the one you love is ill." When he heard this, Jesus said, "This illness will not end in death. No, it is for God's glory, so that God's Son may be glorified through it." Now Jesus loved Martha and her sister and Lazarus. So when he heard that Lazarus was ill, he stayed where he was 2 more days. Now I just want to stop there for a moment. Okay, what's absolutely clear in this bit is that Jesus loved Lazarus, Mary, and Martha. They were some of his top friends. It would seem in the scriptures he quite regularly stayed at their house. There's no doubt about his love for them. But he doesn't go and visit Lazarus in his illness. There's a chance, humanistically speaking, that Jesus might be able to heal this guy and save him from death. Maybe at least he could go and be a bit of comfort to him. Give him some nice words. Put his arms around Mary and Martha or whatever. But he chooses not to. It says, so, when he heard that Lazarus was ill, he stayed where he was 2 more days. I want us to see here is something about a hierarchy of love. A hierarchy, we all have them. There's some things we love more than others. And when it comes to a choice, we're going to choose that love over another love. You know, if there's a whole group, I'm going to put it this way, if there's well, you put it all sorts of ways, okay, but you think of the whole group of people in danger, whether it's in a bus on fire, or whether it's in an accident, or whether it's a load of people about to fall over a cliff or whatever, which people are you going to rescue first? It's not that you hate any of them, you love them all, but there's going to be some people that you're going to choose to rescue over others. And in life, we love all sorts of things. We love our families, we love our friends, we love, maybe we love our work, maybe we love our homes and our gardens, maybe we love all sorts of things we love. There's things we love doing, you know, we love to watch this or that, or whatever it is, okay? There's all sorts of loves, but there's some things when it comes to it, you're going to prioritise over other things. And here's the thing. When Lazarus is ill, it says, Jesus says, it is for God's glory. It is for God's glory. And what Jesus is doing is he is prioritising his love for the Father over his love for those he dearly loves. And what we're actually going to see is this, is by loving the Father first, he is actually going to be most loving towards those whom he also loves. Yeah? That's really, really important. Yeah? I can never love others above God. If I do that, it's going to cause ultimate problems and disaster and difficulty. Yeah? I need to love God first. Let's move on. And this is about Lazarus' death. Verse 7. And then he said to his disciples, this after a couple of days, let's go back to Judea. But Rabbi, they said, a short while ago the Jews there tried to stone you, and yet you're going back? Jesus answered, are there not 12 hours of daylight? Anyone who walks in the daytime will not stumble, for they see by this world's light. It is when a person walks at night that they stumble, for they have no light. After he had said this, he went on to tell them, our friend Lazarus has fallen asleep, but I'm going there to wake him up. His disciples replied, Lord, if he sleeps, he'll get better. Jesus had been speaking of his death, but his disciples thought he meant natural sleep. So then he told them plainly, Lazarus is dead, and for your sake I am glad I was not there, so that you may believe. But let us go to him." Then Thomas, also known as Didymus, said to the rest of the disciples, "Let us go, that we may die with him." Now, I just want to notice a couple of things quickly there. The first is this, is Jesus refers to death as sleep. And he talks about waking him up. And so death is temporary, just like your sleep at night. Death is temporary, just like your sleep at night. And here's the other thing. We noticed in the previous passage that Jesus was working for God's glory. But right now, having worked for God's glory and working for God's glory, now he's working for the sake of the disciples around him. Notice that. For your sakes, I am glad I was not there, so that you may believe. Yeah, Jesus is operating his love for the Father, but he's also operating his love for his disciples and those around him. And you know, they're going to not understand it all. Yeah, this is weird. What is Jesus playing at? He's stopping away. He's talking about sleep in a weird way, all sorts of things, and they don't understand. But actually, he's working for their sake. Why? So that they might believe. And that's what Jesus wants to do in your life. He wants to increase your faith. He wants to increase your trust. He wants to increase your belief. You are going to go through difficult circumstances. Many of you have already been through difficult circumstances. I'm mighty surprised if any of you have never been through difficult circumstances. Because God is increasing your faith. That's what Jesus desires in you. He wants your faith and trust in God to grow. And of course, as your faith and trust in God grow, your fear is overcome. Your fear is overcome. Let's carry on. Martha's faith. Verse 17. On his arrival, Jesus found that Lazarus had already been in the tomb for 4 days. Now Bethany was less than 2 miles from Jerusalem, and many Jews had come to Martha and Mary to comfort them in the loss of their brother. When Martha heard that Jesus was coming, she went out to meet him, but Mary stayed at home. "Lord," Martha said to Jesus, "if you'd been here, my brother would not have died. But I know that even now God will give you whatever you ask." Jesus said to her, "Your brother will rise again." Martha answered, "I know he will rise again in the resurrection at the last day." Jesus said to her, "I am the resurrection and the life. The one who believes in me will live even though they die, and whoever lives by believing in me will never die. Do you believe this?" "Yes, Lord," she replied. "I believe that you are the Messiah, the Son of God, who is to come into the world." Now, Martha gets quite a lot of bad press, really, on the basis of another story about her working hard rather than sitting, listening at Jesus' feet. But here, Martha seems to come out a bit the stronger of the two. And that's the reality, actually, isn't it? We all have strengths and weaknesses, yeah? We all have strengths and weaknesses. And Martha's reaction when she hears Jesus is coming is just straight to get out there. She wants to meet with Jesus. And here we find she has the faith that Jesus could have healed Lazarus, but she has a deeper faith too. I find whatever you ask, she says, whatever you ask, God will give you. Whatever you ask, God will give you. That's what she says to Jesus. She has a complete confidence in the power of Jesus Christ that whatever he says will happen. Here's an interesting thing. If you skip on a couple of chapters, in fact slightly more, 4 chapters, chapter 15, what does Jesus say? He says it multiple times. He says, God will do whatever you ask in my name. Yeah? So Jesus takes that step even further, okay? You and I can have a confidence in Jesus Christ and in the power of God. We'll look at that later on, okay? But I'm just highlighting at this point, okay? What we're seeing in Jesus, Jesus later brings to us too. She has this incredible faith. And she has this faith which recognises, not all Jews agreed, you see, but Martha has this faith in a resurrection of the dead at the last day. She knows that's what's going to happen. You know, she knows already that death is temporary and there's going to bring a resurrection. But Jesus takes that issue of death being temporary even further, and he says, I am the resurrection and the life. He's the one who's going to bring about resurrection. He's the one who gives life. But even more than that, he says, those who believe in me, what does he say? Will never die. Will never die. And so, I'm going to say, obviously we get all sorts of other scriptures, and I know Tony looked at this a couple of weeks ago as well, is that actually the real deep inner you carries on through death. And death is therefore actually a freedom into the presence of God for those who believe in Jesus Christ. That's why sometimes in Christian circles it talks about a promotion to glory. Now, when you get a promotion at work, it's not like you suddenly go off on holiday for a while. You know, you're moved up to a higher level. And as believers, you know, as we die, as our body gives way, our spirit is released, and we go to be with Jesus Christ until that last day when the resurrection occurs. Yeah? So the good news this morning for those of you who are believers, you're going to live on. You're going to live on. You've got eternity in view. Wow, thank you, Jesus. No wonder Jesus refers elsewhere by applying this context. He says the spirit is willing, but the body is weak, yeah? And those of us who are aging know the body is gradually getting weaker and weaker. But the spirit's willing, that's what counts. And it's the spirit that's going to go through into eternity. Let's look at Mary's faith. Verse 28. After she had said this, she went back and called her sister Mary aside. The teacher's here, she said, and is asking for you. When Mary heard this, she got up quickly and went to him. Now, Jesus had not yet entered the village, but was still at the place where Martha had met him. When the Jews who had been with Mary in the house comforting her noticed how quickly she got up and went out, they followed her, supposing she was going to the tomb to mourn there. When Mary reached the place where Jesus was and saw him, she fell at his feet and said, Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. When Jesus saw her weeping and the Jews who had come along with her also weeping, he was deeply moved in spirit and troubled. Where have you laid him? He asked. Come and see, Lord, they replied. Jesus wept. I love, Mary in some ways has faith. She knows that Jesus could have healed Lazarus. She doesn't seem to have quite that same hope. She hasn't got the hope that Martha has in the future resurrection, yeah? And that Jesus can actually do anything he asks. And Jesus wants us to have that hope today too. Knowing that he will do anything. And that he will bring about that future resurrection. And the hope that actually you will never, in your spirit, will never die. You will never die as a child of God. But there's a couple of beautiful things I just want to highlight in here. You know, there's so much we could look at. But listen, the Lord wants to see you. Martha says to me, the Lord wants to see you. What beautiful words. Yeah? I want to speak that over you today. The Lord wants to see you. You know, we sang that song at the start about opening the eyes of my heart. We want to see Jesus, but actually Jesus wants to see you. He wants to meet with you. He wants to engage with you. He wants to interact with you. He loves being with you. That's our Jesus. Yeah? He wants to be with you. And then I want us to notice as well, as you know, in the difficult times, not only does Jesus want to be with us, but also he weeps with us. Yeah? There's this word in there which is, was it deeply moved in spirit, is how it's translated in this version. Deeply moved in spirit. The actual Greek word is this, and it's snorting internally. So you know how horses can go type of thing, yeah? It's that kind of thing internally within us, yeah, going on in our hearts. It's kind of this deep, this is not the way things are meant to be. And of course we know that death came through sin. Yeah, the original intention of God was not that. And so we've got the whole gospel story coming through to Jesus. And there's this snorting of Jesus, and maybe he's snorting partly at this lack of hope that there is, this weeping, and that causes him to have such deep compassion for. I don't think in his weeping he's mourning the loss of Lazarus, because he knows what's just about to happen, but he's weeping in compassion with those around him, and just wanting that. Oh Lord, just bring that hope into this situation. Fill Mary with hope. That's how Jesus is with you too, He comes alongside you in your difficulties and weeps with you, but he also has a deep inner within him. And then let's move on to Jesus' authority over the living, the future, and the dead. Verse 36. Then the Jews said, "See how he loved him." But some of them said, "Could not he who opened the eyes of the blind man have kept this man from dying?" Jesus, once more deeply moved, came to the tomb. It was a cave with a stone laid over across the entrance. "Take away the stone," he said. "But Lord," said Martha, the sister of the dead man, "by this time there's a bad odour, for he's been there 4 days." Then Jesus said, "Did I not tell you that if you believe, you will see the glory of God?" So they took away the stone. Then Jesus looked up and said, "Father, I thank you that you have heard me. I knew that you always hear me, but I said this for the benefit of the people standing here, that they may believe that you sent me." When he had said this, Jesus called out in a loud voice, "Lazarus, come out!" The dead man came out, his hands and feet wrapped with strips of linen and a cloth around his face. Jesus said to them, "Take off the grave clothes and let him go." Just notice Jesus' authority to the living. Roll away the stone. Take off the garments. Jesus has authority over you and I. Jesus gives commands to you and I. Question is whether we're prepared to do that. Roll away the stone. What was Martha's response to it? We're all a mixture, aren't we? Sometimes we're filled with faith, sometimes we're not. He's just filled with practical things. It's going to stink. No one's going to like this. But Jesus' rebuke to that, actually about seeing the glory of God, causes them to roll away the stone. Here's the thing. Yeah, there's all sorts of practical things in life. But we are called to live under faith in Jesus Christ and what he is going to do. And sometimes that causes us or calls us to do what seems impossible. But we do it because Jesus calls us to do it. And we know that as we do what he says, by its very nature, it's Christ's command, we are going to see God's glory in it. We're called to live by faith, not by sight. And practical living is to be the result of our faith. Our faith is not the result of our practical living. Yeah? Always live by faith in the Son of God, and then you'll see God's glory. Jesus knows the future. He knew that Lazarus was going to be coming back from the dead. And hence he gave us what seemed a very strange command to give. But then I notice he commands the dead too. Come out! Come out! Nothing can't respond to God's command, to Jesus' command. He who right at the start of creation said, "Let there be light," called out of darkness light. He with the dead, walk, come on, get on with it. It happens. Nothing is impossible with God. So here's my question to you. It then follows, we'll skip that bit. Okay. What I want to ask is this. First of all, what's going to happen to you at the last day? Do you know assurance of your salvation in Jesus Christ? That's such an important question. If you're not sure, seek to put it right today. Speak to somebody today. Share with the faith. And then I want to ask you this as well. What's your greatest fear in life? Jesus is able to protect you. Last week Nigel was talking about Jesus the Good Shepherd protecting his flock. Jesus is able to protect you, watch over you. Jesus knows the future. Psalm 23, even though I walk through the darkest valley, you are with me. Yeah, Jesus will always be with you. He'll weep with you in the darkest valley. If your love hierarchy is putting God first and his glory, actually you don't need to fear anything else, because God will be with you in it all. That's why Jesus can say authoritatively in Matthew 6, seek first the kingdom of God and everything else will be added to you, so you do not need to worry about it. My friends, if you're fearful about something, if you're worried about something, turn your eyes to Jesus. Turn your eyes to Jesus. Look in his face. He is the one who can give you peace. My peace I give to you. I don't give as the world gives. My peace I give to you. Dave's smiling because he sent me that verse earlier in the week as well on WhatsApp again. My peace I give to you. Look to Jesus. And he will enable you to overcome all fear. That's why just another verse comes to... There's like so many verses on this, isn't it? I mean, the most numerous command in the Bible is do not fear. In John 1, John 4, it says, perfect love drives out fear. Who's perfect love? It's the love of God. And as I perfectly love the Father too, actually all fear will be removed in me. May you know God's peace today, in Jesus Christ's name and for his glory. Amen.